All right, so welcome everyone. This is our total body workout class. This is our second session. We didn't meet last week due to the holiday, and I was just looking at our calendar, and we'll have another holiday in about 4 weeks or 3 weeks from now. So keep that in mind. We'll go this week and the following 2 weeks, then a week off, and then 3 more weeks, and that's the end of the term. So, pretty quick 8 week term that we have here. But as I mentioned on the first week of class, that we do have more of like an educational component to this class as well on Canvas. If you're on my Wednesday class, still building on that, about to be finished with this one, but I do have some information for you for this week. And what I'm going to do is share the front page of your Canvas module. Let me just go on my end and prepare that real quick so everyone could see what you have access to. And I'm just going to go over the topic for this week, and hopefully you're able to see that. So, yeah, this is what you should be able to see. You'll see the link, how you navigate it here. You'll see just this little title, and right here, this is where I'm going to put just a link that you could click on to go to the modules, and I'll show you what the module has right now. Below that, you'll find the previous recording, and then this will be replaced by today's recording by the end of this class. And then right here, this is where you could see the class sessions, the upcoming class sessions. And here's my contact information. If you need anything, feel free to reach out. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here on module 2. This shouldn't take too long. Maybe we'll spend about 5 or 10 minutes here. So we see module 2, you'll get navigated into this area. I'm going to click on the very first tab. Okay. So the topic of this week is external loads for internal strength. So just, fancy way of putting let's lift stuff that's outside of our body to make our body stronger. And yeah, so in this module, we just introduced the concept of progressive overload. Does anyone know what that is or has a good idea of what that could be? Anyone? You could unmute yourself. But so if you're not sure what progressive overload means, it's just a way to stress your body to make it stronger. So there's different ways to do that, and in this module, you'll have more detailed information on that. But essentially, what it is, it's little changes on your workouts. I've mentioned on this class that we could make our workouts more challenging by adding more weight to your exercises. Maybe if you don't have more weight or dumbbells, you could also add more repetitions to your let me see. Yeah, you could add more repetitions to your set. You could reduce the amount of rest you go in between your sets. You could add an additional set. You could make your sets a little bit more challenging by maybe having a more challenging variation. So all of these little changes are going to make your exercise a little bit more challenging. And that's essentially what progressive overload is. And you want to do that over time. So if you continue to do that long term, you're going to see benefits, with strength. And yeah, this module just goes into that a little bit more. And of course, with all of this, you want to be safe. So a lot of information for that. But I'll just quickly skim through the module. And like I said, what you'll do in this module, if you choose to do it, just the science of progressive overload, building your own home gym if you don't have much equipment right now. We're going to participate in today's group session. That's number 2 over here. Um, there is a discussion and that you could partake in, and I believe it's just on kind of showcasing what equipment you have at home or any ideas for your peers. So not obligated, only if you wish to volunteer. and then just a couple new skills that you could learn from this module. So, like I said, just hit next. You could do this on your own time. I don't want to spend too much time, but there's a video on progressive overload, information, how to apply it, progressive overload after 40, and again, some safety tips, some examples. So yeah, great information here. Try to review this video to have some, good information instead of just your generic video with not much info going on. So this one's on creating your home gym. So again, this whole page, same thing, essential equipment. And then this video, if you haven't, I know I've shared this in the past, but if you're not sure about your athletic footwear or what you use when you get around or you're active, this is a great video to look at and not just for staying healthy, but also to prevent falls. So take a look at that when you do have a chance. Hopefully, no one's wearing shoes that are older than a year to work out. Some skill development, how to safely handle some weight at different positions. And then this one, to be honest, um, this one, unless you're going to the gym and lifting a barbell on the heavier side, then this grip positioning would apply to you. Otherwise, it's not very handy. This is more for the barbell and lifting a little bit heavier. But if you're just interested, you could go ahead and take a look at this video. But it's usually for like heavier lifts or Olympic bars or just a little bit more advanced lifting. If your goals aren't any of that, you could skip through it, but if you're curious, you could go ahead. I believe it's like a 5 minute video. Going through here, here's the discussion. Also, I know some of you have participated, and this video just kind of tells you or guides you how to participate in the discussion. But yeah, like for this one, it was just post a photo or description of the household item you're using for resistance today. So it could be your dumbbells, any of that stuff. So if you feel to participate, that's where you would do that. There's examples like small towels or a laundry detergent jug. I've used books or maybe a small pet that you may have. And I know some of you have asked for extra workouts. So if you continue, this is where we will find those workouts. There's two workouts here. These are a little bit, I think, closer to the 1 hour mark. And then this one is a little bit longer, maybe about an hour 20. So there's three workouts for you if you choose to do more throughout the week. And yeah, these are just skills. You can kind of skim through those as well. Some stuff that you should be able to do after going through this module. And other than that, yeah, and covering this in this table, you'll see pretty much everything that we've covered on this module: progressive overload, home gym, your show and tell, weight handling, weight movements, and how to integrate that into your daily life as well. So cool. I know that was a lot of information, but again, it's plenty that you could do throughout the week, whenever you want. But do you have any questions with the module? Any feedback? Okay. Let's see. All right. Let me get this workout started.
It looks great.
All right, Teresa. Yeah, and appreciate that. Again, don't feel obligated to go through it, or if you just muted me for the last 5 minutes and came back just now, totally fine. It's just information for you, and like I said, it's worthwhile. And yeah, it could benefit you. Definitely, if we're trying to get stronger, that progressive overload, that's what we do in here. You'll see that sometimes we'll start doing some core when we start with just 25 or 30 seconds per exercise. And then as the class develops or moves on, we'll get closer to like 40 or 50 seconds. And technically, that's progressive overload. So awesome. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute and we could just have a conversation here. So let me get the setting going for the recording. Awesome. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start our warm up. Okay, so make sure you have some nice comfy shoes. Okay, nice comfy shoes. We're gonna look left to right. Look left to right. Up and down. Next circles. Switch. Let's go ahead and do our snow angels. There you go, Jen. You got your weight equipment right there. You got your cat. Yeah, so for today's workout, just expect sets, giant sets of about four different exercises. I would say one cardio exercise, upper body, lower body, and maybe arm or shoulders. So maybe we'll substitute an arm and shoulder movement for core. So we'll try to keep each set to be four exercises, and we'll do 2 rounds of each. That should get us through quite a bit. Okay, let's bring that right arm across. I did a hike out there by Tropico Canyon yesterday morning, and it was going smooth. And I think my body just kind of reacts when I'm close to the finish line. And let's switch because this is the second time where I'm about half a mile from our vehicles to go back home, and then my hips start cramping up, my calf starts cramping up. And it's always, like the last 3 minutes of the run, 3 or 4 minutes. So I got to figure that out. But yeah, but I've never ran out in that area. It's pretty cool. It's just right below the Santiago Peak out there, just above, I think, Rancho Santa Margarita. Let's bring our right hand back, drop that hand, and push down. We'll switch. And let's go ahead and do our trunk rotation. So just gentle left to right. All right, let's do our ab circles. So wide stance, fixed back, and then hinge at the hips, come across, lean back, and repeat. Keep going. Let's go big hula hoops. So wide stance and just big hip circles. So again, none of the stretches, movements that we're doing should, be uncomfortable. Switch. So if anything that we're doing is kind of uncomfortable or you'd rather not do, then just try to replace it with something else. Ideally with something that's stretching or working out that same area. All right, let's go ahead and do our hamstring stretch. So we're gonna just slide our hands down to our ankles. You could bring your hips down and just extend your hip up and then back down. One more. All right. And our very last one's gonna be our deep squat stretch. The white stance, just drop your hips down, torso's upright. And you can separate your knees with your elbows if you can. But I feel the more upright your torso is, better stretch you're getting. And if you're good, you could shift your weight left to right. And rise. Awesome. All right. I'll give you a couple minutes to go ahead and grab your equipment. So a chair, your yoga mat, and also dumbbells will do. So if you're gonna go ahead and do that, that'd be awesome. That item here. So go ahead, take a couple minutes to gather those items. Righty. So for our first set, what we're gonna do is gonna be some cross toe taps. So for this one's our cardio, light cardio. We're just gonna be here and just reach right hand to our left foot, just opposite. We're gonna practice that movement, getting a nice stretch throughout our entire body and also getting our cardio up. After that, we're gonna do our lateral to front raises here. Okay, lateral to front raises. Then we're gonna go do a standing oblique crunch. So hands here, and then elbow to your knee on the same side. We're just gonna focus on one side first and then go to the left side. We're not gonna alternate immediately right after each other. And then after that, we're gonna go with the sumo squat, wide stance, dumbbells here. If you're comfortable up here, what I've noticed is when we have our dumbbells up here, usually keeps your back a little bit more upright than just keeping them here. Sometimes we have a tendency to bend over. So sumo squat, just come down and up. Okay. So those four different movements are it's what we're gonna do right now. All right. So let me find my timer. We'll start off with the cardio since we haven't really introduced, we didn't do cardio on our first week. We'll go 30 seconds of cardio. Okay. All right. So when you're ready, cross toe taps. Again, just hand to opposite foot. Ready and begin. So just right here. And we're trying to keep the limbs, straight out. We're ready at 15 seconds. So just hand to opposite foot. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, time. All right, we're gonna rest. Usually our rest will be somewhere about 30 seconds in between lifts. All right, our next one's gonna be our front and lateral shoulder raise. Okay, working out the shoulder joints on the deltoid side, the sides, and the fronts. Okay, so we're gonna go here and here. Complex movement, doubling up. Let's go ahead and grab those dumbbells. I feel like I get a little bit more range of motion if I bring my arms or my hands behind me. Get a little bit more of a stretch instead of just here. So I'll go here and then back and then forward. Okay, ready? And begin 12 of each. So try to be nice and controlled. These don't need to be fast. Last thing we want to do is get injured because we're rushing the workout or if we're being a little careless. So 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10, 11, 11, and 12, 12. Goes back. Right? Again, 30 to 40 seconds. We could recover a little bit. Next, we have our standing oblique crunch. So we'll do 30 seconds on each side, 30 seconds on our right, 30 seconds on our left. So that's going to be hands here and then elbow to knee. If you want a deeper sensation or feeling, you might want to bring your elbow to your little crease at your hip. Okay, so a little bit more of a tuck instead of just going comfortable there. All right, ready? 30 seconds and begin. So just on one side. And this will work a little bit on your balance. So we're just working that one side first. Try not to just turn your neck. This is not a neck workout. This is for your oblique. So we want to really aim at bringing those shoulders down. And time. Okay. All right. Take 20 seconds. We'll go on the other side. So yeah, so focus on bringing your shoulder down because if we're just doing neck, you're gonna irritate that part of your neck. Ready? And left side, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't know why I'm counting. I'm doing 40 seconds. 10 more seconds. And time. All right. Sumo squats are next. Next, we have sumo squats. Remember, you could do goblet, which I would recommend. Just right here. Or if that's a little bit too heavy, you could just hold the weight down here and squat. All right. 10 more seconds. All right. We're going to do 12 up here. Ready. Begin. So go as low as you can. Maybe a half a second pause at the bottom. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. Okay. That was a full set. So in between full sets, we'll take 90 seconds. So feel free to walk it off, drink some water, just collect yourselves. We want to have comfortable heart rate, comfortable, um, yeah, we just want to be fully recovered before we start our next set. Did anyone do any fun exercises or walks or hikes this weekend? Oof. About 35 seconds. We'll start again. Alrighty. Round 2. Okay. If you need a little bit more rest, feel free to maybe just take a few more seconds, but we'll get started. Ready? 30 seconds. Hands up. And 3, 2, 1, go. So I'll give options of 30 to 40 seconds for this one. Okay. We're at 20 seconds. Well, 15. Miscounted. We're at 25. 30 seconds. 35. And 40 seconds. Good. Oof. All right. So 45 seconds rest. We have our lateral and front raises once more. We'll start in about 20 seconds for those. Good job. All right, here we go. Grab your dumbbells. Give me 12 again. And lateral raise, two front raise. That's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, and 12. Whew. We have our crunches soon. Our standing oblique crunch. Remember 30 seconds on each side. Ready and begin. So remember shoulder, think more shoulder to knee. One more time. All right, 15 seconds rest. We're gonna switch to the left side. 3, 2, 1, go. Halfway there. 3, 2, 1, time. All right. Now it's our sumo squats. Ooh. So grab those dumbbells. All right. Sumo squats. Ready? Right here. Line stands and begin. So give me 12 to 15 on this one. So if you're feeling good, you add another three more. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Whew. Very good. All right. Our 2-minute break real quick before we transition to our next set. Okay, so water break, bathroom break, 2 minutes. All right. Going to our second set. Second round of exercises. All right, so for this one, we are going to focus a little bit more muscular. So we'll skip the cardio for this round. So we're going to go with the bicep Arnold press. That's going to be a bicep curl, rotate, press to shoulder press, come back. We'll repeat that motion about 10 to 12 times. Okay, that's working out our shoulders and our arms. After that, we're going to do either a reverse lunge. Okay, reverse lunge. If that's too much, what you could do is just a standing fixed lunge, and you can kneel down and up. Okay, so that's targeting the quad muscles, the front part of your thighs. That's going to be our second one. We're going to go and transition to our pecs, underhand, front raises. So similar to our front rows that we just did, but this is underhand coming from wide to close, working on our pecs. And then we'll finish off with some standing calf raises. Okay, so upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body for this set. Cool. Let's go ahead and grab our dumbbells. Main movements for this set, I would say, is the shoulder press and the lunges. So, all right, so let's do 10 to 12. So curl, rotate, press. So two movements in one. So remember, as you're going away from your body, that's usually where I like to exhale. And as you're coming back together, I inhale. 7. Let's try to find a nice full tempo. I think I have one more. Very good. Oof. I'll work on my hip flexors. Okay. And next is the lunges. So these do take a little bit longer. So we're gonna go ahead and do 8 to 10 of these. So I'll let you figure out how many of those you want to do. So if you're doing the static where you're at a fixed position, just do your 8 to 10 first on one leg and then switch. But if you're doing the more active movement, then you could alternate. So you would do 8 and 8, so 16 or 20. Okay, total. Alrighty. So if we're ready, let's go ahead and begin. There you go. So I'm gonna kneel, keeping my torso upright. And just breathing patterns, honestly, what's comfortable. I find it most efficient, and usually what I see, people that talk about breathing is in through your nose, out through your mouth. 4. Keep that torso upright. 5. Ooh. So work on your balance too. 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10. Good. Gather yourself. Lunges will take your breath away. How's everyone feeling? Jan, you good?
That gets the heart rate up.
Yeah. Yeah, those will. There's your cardio. I mean, Imagine a set with burpees and lunges. I think that's that's enough for a full workout. So, and you'll recognize that. There's some movements that, if you only have 20 minutes to work out, what should I do? I want cardio, but I also want to work out my legs. Boom, just do maybe like 3 or 4 sets of lunges, and that might be enough to keep you strong in that area. Okay, we're gonna go with our underhand front raises. Okay, ready? So start a little bit wider. We come closer. Dumbbells almost making contact. So I'll do 10 to 12 of these. Go ahead and begin. So go wide, squeeze up top. So I do a gentle squeeze. And when I say squeeze, I usually just try to squeeze my palms through the dumbbell handle. And that should activate the pecs a little bit as well. So right now, the next one we're gonna do is gonna be calf raises. So just holding the dumbbells at your side and you're lifting your heels off the ground quickly up and slowly down. So each one should take about maybe 2 to 3 seconds. So you could do that. Another one that I've started doing not too long ago to help with like tight calves or shin splints. If you want to try it, you don't need the dumbbells for this. But what I would recommend is hold on to a table or a wall. You want to bend your knees slightly. So you see my knees here, and this looks kind of funny. So you're here and you're lifting your heels off. So what that does is by bending, you get a stretch there going on already. And now you're activating your calves while it's already being stretched. So you get a little bit more lengthening there. So you can do either one. So if you feel like you're dealing with that, I would recommend doing what I just showed you. All right. So 15 to 20. Ready and begin. So yeah, what really got my left calf to cramp up yesterday was there was this little section of the trail that broke off into its own section, and it was called the Billy Goat Trail. And it's a section that has maybe about 20 segments of actually about 15 to 25 stairs. And I think just going from running, at a like on a running farm, like how people usually run, like consistent running, and then just suddenly changing that into steps. I think my calves were like, "Hey, what are you doing? What is this?" And near the end, that's when they cramped up. Um, and yeah, they they had my legs were kind of just turning on and off the last 2 minutes of my run. So so I was asking my buddy's wife. She runs, I say, on average between 12 and 20 miles a day. So she has a lot of knowledge on long distance running. And yeah, she recommended, these salt capsules and other electrolytes. We're gonna take our minute and a half right now. So that's our round. So I'm gonna have to do that. But from everyone that I talked to or folks that have been running very long, and when I say long distance, like 2 hours or more, they just tell me like you just gotta practice being on your feet a lot. Like that's what it comes down to. Um, your body's like, hey, what are you doing? You haven't sat down in 2 hours. Can you give me a little break? And yeah, and it's giving you spasms and cramps so you could shut down and have a seat on the floor because it needs a break. Uh, Not the best feeling. Oh, All right, we have about 8 seconds and we'll start back with our dumbbell Arnold press. Okay. So again, 10 to 12 of these. You're ready? Grab those dumbbells and begin. So curl, rotate, press. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, go for 12, 11, and 12. Awesome. 30 seconds, because now we have lunges. Anytime I have a movement that I know is gonna get me tired, I make sure I'm rested fully before I started. Otherwise, it's not gonna look pretty. At about 150 calories burned right now. Go ahead. We have our lunges. Okay. So if you're ready, go ahead and begin. Again, give me 8 or 10 on each side. Torso's upright. Very good. Oof. Water. How are we doing, Jeff? Miss Noor, Mary, how's everyone doing? Is anyone napping? Is anyone cooking breakfast while we're in here? All right, doing well.
No, we're here with you.
All right, great. Josefina, are you napping? We have our underhand front raises next, okay? Ready? And let's go. Right here. Good. So remember this anytime you want to keep the muscles active and healthy. I think what we do here once a week is probably the bare minimum. You know, if we don't want to reduce strength and just kind of stay at a baseline of where we are. Now, if you want to get a little bit stronger, increase range of motion, um, longevity, I would say probably do this type of workout twice, maybe 3 times a week. So, and obviously, if we do more, then you'll see a little bit more benefits, but you won't see significantly more. The sweet spot is if you could get 2 to 3 workouts like this. One will keep you at like right here. 2 and 3 will get you somewhere in this range. And then 4 or 5 will get you a little bit better, but not significantly. So don't feel like you have to work out every day of the week. But if you're at 2 or 3, and again, we're looking for 150 minutes of active workout the week. That's kind of like the sweet spot where you'll see the most progress. right? We did our front raises, now we have our calf raises, okay? 15 to 20 is working on our calves and begin. And again, everyone has different goals, but cardio wise, just walking, getting your heart rate up with these workouts. Yeah, that's probably the best bang for your buck. Also, like your best risk to reward ratio is, just doing what we're doing here and walking. There's some movements that could be there's a lot of risk for very little reward. So some of that stuff you kind of want to avoid. Um, and what I think into, when I'm thinking about an exercise like that, it's usually like relax, like a barbell deadlift. So a heavy weight with a long, heavy bar. And if you have bad form, your chances of getting injured are very high, and your reward for that is very slim. So just consider some movements before you commit to them. All right. So we just finished our second set. Okay. We are going to go ahead and do into our third giant set. So we're going to go with jumping jacks. Okay. Jumping jacks. If that's too much, you could do a side step jack here. Okay. We haven't done our back yet. So we're going to do our bent over rows. So hinge at the hip, come here, and then come up. We're going to get our yoga mat, put it on the floor, do assisted push-ups or traditional push-ups. Okay, working on our chest and our arms. And then we're going to go ahead, get in our quadruped position and do donkey kicks. Okay, so we're working on the lower back as well as the glutes. Okay, so we'll need our yoga mats, our space to be standing for this one. So just prep your yoga mat now if you like. Yoga mat for 2 exercises. And we'll probably try to, with the last set, maybe keep it on the floor and also use the yoga mat for that. So we could finish a little bit more comfortable. All right. Give you another minute. All right. So jumping jacks, 30 seconds. I haven't done jumping jacks in a long while, so I'm gonna go ahead and just aim for 30 seconds. All right. I might even do the step jacks because of my calf. I don't want that. I think if I have a cramp right now in my calf, it'll probably set me back about a week. So I'm gonna do the side step jacks. Ready? And begin. So right here. And you could do jumping jacks too. So I'm just doing this just to be a little bit more gentle on my legs. 30 seconds. We're at 15 right now. Three, two, one, time. Okay. We have our bent over rows. Remember this, we're hinging at the hip, back is straight. Bring those dumbbells to your side. Or you could rest on a table or your chair, keep your back straight and do one at a time. Okay, so whatever you're comfortable with, go ahead and do that. All right, here we go. I'm gonna hinge at my hips, back is straight, arms are extended, and bring those elbows in and down. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right. Awesome. Remember, knee assisted push-ups or regular traditional push-ups. Your call. Sometimes if you're undecisive what you want to do, what I would do if I was in your spot is start with the traditional push-ups, do as many of those as you can, and then transition to the knee assisted. So maybe it's you do 3 regular push-ups and then we do maybe 7 assisted. Your call, or you could just whatever you feel comfortable with. Ready? So 10 to 12 and begin. Go. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Awesome. Reach 200 calories. All right. Next, we have our donkey kicks. Okay, so donkey kicks for these, right now, if you could just observe, but typically for these, I want you to look down. Okay, your wrists are right below your shoulders, your knees are right below your hips. I'm gonna work on that right leg only first. So that right foot comes up towards the ceiling and back down and repeat. Sometimes I see people kick back. You don't want to do that. You want to go up. All right. Let's do 10 on each side. 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right. I'm gonna just rest my arms a little bit. When we're in this position, arms get a little bit tired from the push-ups. When you're ready, get back. Again, look down, wrists below the shoulders, knees below the hips, and left side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, we're gonna go back to jumping jacks. So let's take a minute and we'll go into jumping jacks. All right, jumping jacks. Ready? Here we go. Our side step jacks and begin. Okay, right here. Got 15 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, time. Alrighty. Very good. We have our bent over rows. Okay. How's everyone doing with time? Everyone's okay? Do people need to log off in a little bit? Give me a thumbs up if you could stick around another 10 or 15 minutes on the emojis. Okay, Gabby. Awesome. Okay, I see a few. Great. All right, we'll do that. All right, let's go ahead, bend over. Okay, extend, and then up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Back to the floor. And since what I had planned after these last two were on the floor, we'll kind of just roll into them, okay? So we're gonna go right now with our push-ups, then also with our donkey kicks. After that, we could go with the side plank, do the other side, and then some Jane Fondas, and we'll repeat that a second round. So we have about maybe just 6 more sets of exercises to go through, okay? All right, push-ups, same thing. Here we go. 10 to 12. Ready and begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Awesome. Good work. 220 calories. Oh, I forget who I was telling that. I think it was to my neighbor. I was mentioning, oh yeah, we did a hike, and I was like, oh, now you can go eat half a cookie with the extra 2 miles we walked. So let's go ahead and do our donkey kicks. Look down and begin. So remember, when you're exercising, don't think about it as just a waste to burn calories. I would look at the big picture and think about the means to keep your body stronger and healthier. Because you could easily be like, why even work out if it takes that long to burn, this many calories. All right. And then if you're ready, do the other side. And to be honest and pretty forward about this, if your concern or your priority is to burn calories, that's your main priority with exercising is to burn calories. I would just be more mindful in what you're eating and putting in your body because, like I mentioned in the past, it's a lot easier to skip a slice of cheese on your burger than to go run or walk a mile. And truthfully, that's what it comes down to. So, but the benefits that you're gonna get from walking or running a mile, you're gonna get hip mobility, knee mobility, ankle flexion, extension. There's so many benefits off that. That's the real prize from working out. All right, we're here. So next is gonna be a side plank, and I'll give you folks an option. You could do the side plank where we're just resting on our elbow and our lower leg. So you are using your knee, so hips off the ground. Okay. You could do a little bit more advanced where it's just your heels and your elbow. It's a little bit more challenging. If that's a bit much, you could also try to do an oblique crunch. But to be honest, that's probably like my third option out of the three that we just selected because it's not going to be a lot of range of motion and it could be a little bit uncomfortable. So I would recommend one of the first two. Okay, let's do our left side first. We'll go with 30 seconds. Ready? Three, two, one. Up. 10 more seconds. Three, two, one. Time. Right? And you could just switch. Like, so I could face the camera. I'm just gonna come on this side. We'll start in five, four, three, two, one, and rise. And here. Five, four, three, two, one. Time. All right. What is it we're gonna do from here? Glute bridges? Oh, Jane Fonda's. So let's rest on our side. This is gonna work on our hip adductors. Okay, and we're just gonna raise that leg up and control it down, up, yeah, and repeat. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right, I'm gonna switch sides. Once we are here, let's begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right. We have one more set of the planks and the Jane Fondas, and we are good for today. So let's take maybe about 30 seconds. I don't think these are as taxing as some of the other sets we did. Ooh. Everyone's good so far still? Thanks for staying on past 10. All right, here we go. All right, ready? Planks. 3, 2, 1. Up. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's go ahead and switch. Let's repeat on the other side. 3, 2, 1. Up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. drop. Kind of zooming by on these last few exercises. Okay. We're gonna do Jane Fonda's. We'll start in 10 seconds with our last set. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right, 12 on the opposite side. And that should do it for today. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Whew. Good job, folks. Oh, that was a weak clap. That's better. All right, how are we feeling? Whew. Catch your breath.
I was super cold and now I'm sweating.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I started with the sweater, with the beanie, and now I'm like taking layers. But I got 250 calories. I know sometimes, Carmen, you might be closer to 200.
266.
Oh, hey, there you go. Usually I'm like way over yours. Awesome. So yeah, so you guys could see on this class we will burn more. In the summer when we have cardio and core, we actually burn a little bit more. I'm gonna end the recording here right now. So